greeting everybody. Questions for Coach? We'll start with Justin.
One of the guys we're about to talk to is Giovani Richardson. What do you think of his freshman year and how he settled in as a receiver? What's the next year for him?
Really proud of his perseverance, obviously having walked in with the injury that he had and missing spring and a lot of summer. So that was tough on him. But the focus that he had in the classroom right away gave him the opportunity to line up correctly and give him his chance to play early. Naturally, those guys, when they come in, they have very high expectations. And so, you try to find a way to balance, playing time along with, their expectations and, what they really wanted to get done for their season. I think when we look back at it, I think Giovani would tell you that he's I'm proud of the way his freshman year went. I'm the same way. I'm really excited about his progression in spring and then, the winter rather, and then where we are in spring right now. So very, very happy with where he's at.
You've mentioned in the past his football IQ, his football smarts. In your opinion, what makes him such a smart football player?
The time he puts in. He really does well with spending the extra time in the classroom. And then just his, he's played a lot of football, and the experience is something that you can't, really simulate or, there's nothing you can, take for that other than the fact that he's played a lot. And then, his want to is really high. He has a care factor that I think is extremely high and wants to be really good. And with that, comes, eagerness to want to learn and really opening himself up to the coaching.
Jason and then Lindsay.
With the additions of DJ and Jordan Ross and all that, how important was it to make sure you increase the speed of the room or just added speed in general?
Very important. Probably because the guys that we lost with, Javon Watley and then Luke Wysong, Chris Hudson, they were all, fast guys that can run. So being able to try to find a way to, get other guys in here that can help in that space. We really do believe in the guys that we've already had in the room. Obviously, the retention was very important to get the guys back that we have now, and then to add those other few pieces were really big for us. I'm really happy with their progression. There's a lot of learning happening right now, a lot of lessons that are taking place, but there's no doubt in my mind that they'll give us an opportunity this year to be good.
When you evaluate guys like that maybe didn't put up big numbers at their previous school, what's the biggest thing that you're looking at in terms of fit and all that?
You really got to try to find a way to get a hold of that, that tape, that practice tape. Really try to see, how they practice. You talk to coaches and see what the practice habits were about. Very fortunate to have good relationships with a lot of the coaches that, the places they came from. So we were able to, vet them really well to try to find out what kind of kid they were, what kind of player they were. And then obviously you're just taking a shot in the dark as well. There's no real way to find out until they get here.
Lindsay and then Justin.
Noah said that this receiver room is probably the deepest and best he's had. How would you describe the receiver room for this season?
I would describe this room as similar to where I was last year at this point. I would say they're a good group and they're growing. I think we have I thought the retention of the guys that were here last year, Mizell, Gio, Trey, Chris Hunter, Brandon Phelps, all those guys that, really played football for us in the last couple seasons, really give us an edge. Coming in the second year, having the same offensive coordinator, them have already had played in it. I think that really gives us a place to be able to pick up where we left off. And then adding those other additions and already having a strong culture within the room really gives the room a chance to really, connect quickly and, really find that healthy competition within there so they can push each other. So, I'm excited where we're going. Noah knows best when it comes to those things. So, I'm happy to hear that.
Justin and then Juan.
We've heard from Coach Brennan and other players that Brandon Phelps had probably the best winter out of anybody. What was that like from your perspective?
He took it very personal. He just wanted to really find a way to, get better individually. So immediately post bowl game, you saw a different Brandon. He was spending extra time in the weight room. He was in the offices more. but really focused on trying to lean his body out and, put on the muscle that he needed. And there's no doubt that he had probably the best spring out the group, our winner out the group. The numbers increased, his strength increased, speed got better. So really, really happy with Brandon's, focus on wanting to be the best version of himself. And I know he's going to help us this year win games.
Chris Hunter is a guy that's been here for a long time. What's the next step for him, considering it's his last year?
Yeah, it's just time for Chris to, take a hold of the reins of being the leader within the room and, a guy that I can lean on to push this group if I'm not around for some reason, and with the details, and also, holding guys accountable. Not only that, but him individually, he knows there's still growth there for him. He's missed a little time last season, and so I know he was very dedicated this winter to really try to find the imbalances within his strength to be able to make sure he doesn't miss any time. We're really seeing a different Chris Hunter when it comes to that too. He seems to be fresh every practice. He's finishing every practice, and he's back to where he can just kind of run all day, and that's what you want him to be.
A lot of the pieces that you added this time around were on the younger side compared to last year when a lot of the guys were, on their senior years. What was the approach? How was it different this year when it came time to add pieces?
I thought the retention of the guys that we already had in the room really gave us an opportunity to go out and find, some unique pieces. And then not only that, but the addition of the two freshmen with Caleb Smith and RJ as well. So you try to find guys that are going to be a little bit different than the guys that are in your room. I thought DJ Jordan brings us a little bit of that. I thought his competitiveness, he's very unique with the ability to be able to drop his weight, change direction, and very fast with the ball in his hand. And he's a competitive by nature, so having that piece in the room really boosts that competitiveness within the room. And then Rodney Gallagher, just a super savvy vet, a guy that, immediately when he stepped on the campus and, I knew he was a person that we'd be able to trust, and you're seeing him play at that level. Picked up the offense extremely fast, and also knows his role. And so he's going to play and help us this year. And then, Jordan Ross, I thought, just another unique piece with having a lot of speed, just a 10-500 meter runner. Played a bunch of special teams, as well as offense. So, has snaps in college. So I thought the combination of those three really give us an edge.
Justin and Juan.
With RJ and Caleb Smith, what was, just how do you look at just their careers in high school and how you prepare to, develop them this year?
Excited about those two. RJ had a very good winter as well. When he got here, he was able to put on, I think like 20 pounds of muscle and get his body in a different type of shape. He's a kid who's eager to learn as well. He's consistently in my office trying to learn the offense as fast as possible, understanding that's the fastest way for him to get on the football field. And then Jet is just a very polished, a young receiver that has just a plethora of tools already that we're able to work with. And he has a unique toughness to him for his size. And then obviously, next to Mizell, he's probably the second fastest in the room. We'll find out who's the fastest between those two. But and he comes with the program he comes from is very competitive, and they're also very disciplined. And so it was very easy for him to adjust with, being on time and time schedules and, CATS appointments and things like that. So I'm very pleased with both the freshmen. Excited to see how they help us this year.
The guys that you added in the portal, did you have a prior relationship to them when they were coming out of high school, and do you think maybe that helped you guys land those guys?
Did not. Okay. I did not at all. We there was other factors of guys that we knew had relationships with them, and then it was just more or less us vetting the situation. And, obviously Rodney was the first piece we added, and I thought Rodney just, his track record spoke for itself. He was a great piece to add in what we needed in that space, losing Luke and Javen in that spot. So I thought that was the first priority, making sure that, Gio, had a guy that was in there with him just in case if things happen to Gio.
You kind of just talked about Rodney, but what does he kind of bring to the receiver room, but also to the offense as a whole?
Yeah, he's savvy, man. Like he's played a lot of football. You know, he's good at punt returns. You know, he has great technique back there, so he'll help us in that space as well. But I think there's a subtleness to him that allows him to be a leader right away that the boys gravitate to. So it's great to see another senior piece that has already been established. The other benefit of that is having a guy who's played within our conference and understands what this conference requires, and who's actually, you know, scored touchdowns and, you know, competed at a high level in this conference. So his experience is really, really big. I'm very pleased with having him.
I have a couple for you. Blocking, how do you think that went for your unit last year, and how do you think that carries into this year?
I thought we put a lot of emphasis on the perimeter blocking. You know, we have periods within practice that are strictly focused on that piece. In this offense, there's a lot of times where the receivers service each other within that space, and what I mean by that, there'll be 3 receivers split out, and there's 2 of them blocking for 1. So we really need to take that serious. I thought we did a good job with that. There's definitely growth in that space as well, but I love our effort towards it, and then I love the want to. And that's the biggest thing for, you know, receivers. A lot of receivers just, they don't have the want to. They have no willingness to want to block. I think our boys take that personal, and they want to have a piece of that.
And then what has impressed you about Spivey's growth from the time he got here last year till now?
He's consistently, gradually growing. You know, I like the fact that there hasn't been a plateau for him yet. I think there's these small increments that are happening in his world that are allowing him to continue to experience success, but at the same time, there's still corrections within that he understands that there's still growth there. And that's probably one of the worst things that kids could have is, you know, success early, and then, you know, they feel complacent. Spivey's really focused on wanting to get better. And so, you know, I appreciate his eagerness in that space. He's spending more time in the office. There's a lot of layers to our offense, I think, and so he's in this next step. He's learning to start to peel those back a little bit. He's asking more questions. He wants to know more about what other guys are doing on the football field, not only just his position. And so there's starting to be a little bit more of an understanding, and I think that's going to let him kind of settle in and play even faster.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Yep. My pleasure.